So I'm happy to introduce Amrit Sethi from Excella Travel and Kevon from Toasty. And I'm going to mute myself so that I'll leave everybody over to Kevon and Amrit.
Thank you. Hi. Welcome everybody to our first virtual Startup Grind meeting. I'm really excited, and it's so apt to have Kevon because he's actually doing exactly that right now, doing virtual network events. So I'm really honored to have it kicked off with the virtual events being with someone who's just directly in the space. And Kevon, thank you for being here. And it's really nice to have interacted with you in the last few days to sort of iron out our event. And I want the audience to have a little bit of background of you, Kevon, so that people understand who you are before we kick off the crux of the actual meeting on your product.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me here. My name is Kevon. I run a startup company called Toasty, and some of you have heard it, some of you have not heard it, then you will learn all about it today. Basically, what I'm passionate about is bringing people together so that it's super related to community building. And that's why when I first started Toasty, I've always been looking at Startup Grind for one reason, because Startup Grind stands for making friends, not contact. And that's exactly what I aim to do with Toasty. Like, I want people to just get to know each other on a deeper level at different events and workshops. So that's why I started Toasty. As for my background, I do have a mix of business and technical background, which we can dig deeper later on. And then I also ran another startup with my business partner previously before Toasty, which is a coding school for kids. So that's why I have a lot of experience with kids. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why running virtual events is also related to kids. So yeah, let's leave it there for now.
Great, thanks. Did you grow up here? Were you born and brought up in Hong Kong?
So I grew up in Hong Kong until 15 years old. And then I hopped on a plane by myself to United States. And I still remember when I got into the gate at the airport, I was crying. My tears was dropping because I didn't know what to expect. I was such a young person, and then I'm going to so far away. But I went there for school, and then I stayed in the States around Boston for 7 years, and I went to a business school. So actually, at that point, I had no idea how technology works. Yeah.
So when you started, did you actually go into, what did you start to study? I mean, when you went at the age of 15, you would have been in high school, right?
So a lot of people here are from Hong Kong. So they would know that in Hong Kong it's so common to major in business and finance. So that's what I picked, because all my life I thought I would just be a banker, working in Central, amazing. So I did major in that. I went to a very small business school called Babson College. I don't know how many people have actually heard of it. But the thing is, I was doing a lot of finance, like asset management, in my senior year, and I didn't like it at all. I feel like it's all just making, sorry to the finance people out there, but I feel like a lot of making up stories, which I didn't really like. But at that point, I was thinking to myself, what should I do after I graduate? And I was pretty lost, but I used one trick, which is I thought about my childhood, where I actually spent a lot of time. I looked at when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, and I realized, wow, the Kevon at 12 years old, 13 years old, I was spending a lot of time making websites. I didn't know how to code back then, but I knew how to install PHP framework and get a website and forum running. So I was thinking, if I wasn't bored as a kid, then I should have a passion for it. So I just followed this track, and I decided to do a tech startup and eventually even learn coding myself.
So did you actually, when you left, did you finish your business degree?
Yes, I did. I'm a
Okay,
believer in just completing it anyway.
good.
Yeah.
So was it that you went dived straight into, after you finished your business degree, did you dive straight into the tech world? So you
Yes,
never did banking. You didn't do any of that, right?
I did internship, but I
Mm.
didn't like it. So I was one of those like naive people who would think that after school I can create a successful startup. No, I'm not. So basically, after school I dived right into startup, and I spent half a year trying to start up something. But actually, back in my head, I knew that this is all for learning. Like
Mhm.
it's pretty much set up for failure, but I don't really care because failure brings you the learning and learning brings you the success. And I knew that back then. So I spent about half a year after school for that.
Okay, so with the failure that you had, did you then, with what you're doing, with what you're leading up to and building up from that, did
Yeah.
you, that half a year, because tech has changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you looking at the actual foundations of learning of management styles, or was it tech learning that you actually evolved from? Do you know what I mean?
Um, Back then, I remember it's not so much tech. I think one thing, I went to business school, and at my school, a lot of people are already starting their business. So like, I still remember, I think it was my freshman year, and then you would hear like another freshman running a company with 1 million US revenue a year. And because it's an entrepreneurship school, so everyone is doing something, and you just get inspired. But then we have to know that in school it's very different. Like we learn all the theories, we learn that how to start a business, how to do marketing, but in real world it's not the same. So
Mhm.
back then I was just thinking about um, figuring out how to create a business. Yeah, simple
Okay.
as that. No, not even tech oriented.
Was there any of the 6 months that you actually, I just want to see
Yeah.
how you, what were the real essence of learnings that you have actually taken on and it's actually helped mold you to where you are today?
Um, I think it is, if people are doing startup out there in the audience, then they would understand that creating a business is not just creating a product and then kind of imagine how you want it to be. But a lot of it is that people call it product market fit, right? You have to create something, but you have to find the right people to give that something to. And a lot of things has to work in the right way in order for a business to take off. Just missing one or two things already, your startup won't take off. So it's a lot of like figuring things out throughout
Good.
that 6 months.
I'll come back to it in a while because there's a
Sure.
few key things I'd like to actually have in the wrap up of your learnings that would
Okay.
maybe be of value to the audience.
Yeah.
But so you did your first your coding for children
Yeah.
was that your next project after your 6 months of your startup?
No, actually, so after that 6 months, which is a failed project, right? So I thought to myself, what is missing from that experience? The whole part is missing a technical person because my business partner and I were not that technical. So I actually decided to pick up coding, and it was 2013. So back then, the coding bootcamp scene has just taken off. So all the adults are, if you're interested in coding, you can actually take a 3-month bootcamp to learn all about it. So I decided to fly back to New York, spend 3 months on coding,
Mm-hmm.
and then I landed a job in Singapore as a software engineer.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
that was, and I spent like more than a year as a programmer, and then spent 4 years with the coding school.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, sorry, was that 4 years? Because the line wasn't so clear.
4 years. Yeah.
4 years. Okay, good. So, I'd say that is the first code a similar to Toasty right now. Was first code a learning curve that helped you with your Toasty app? How did that work when you transitioned from there?
Oh, it's totally different.
Mhm.
First Code Academy is a kids coding school So even though it's oriented around technology, but then it essentially is an education company. So a lot of things are very operational. You kind of set up a campus, and then the kids will come take classes, and then you basically launch summer camps, launch different classes, and recruit them to come in. And it is very different from running a SaaS tech company right now. All the business metrics are different. The way to get your customers are different. Yeah, basically back then we started out in Hong Kong, so I'll be talking to a lot of parents. So that's a very special customer segment. But now Toasty mostly has users in US and Europe. So I'll be talking to community managers, HR managers, and everything's online. So it's totally different.
Okay, good. So so being so different in the idea, in the structure and all that, how did you just come about with Toasty? It wasn't associated with what you were already doing. Where did this idea for Toasty come about?
Yeah, so the reason why I left First Code is because given my a little bit of experience as a software engineer, I really want to get back to the software side of things. I think that ability to scale a product and like self-service, that's very attractive to me. So the Toasty idea came about because I have been looking around at all the networking events, workshops, meetups that I usually attend, because I have been in the startup space, so I attended a lot of these kind of events. And one thing that I observed is that people are talking to each other, but then they're not really becoming friends, or they're not really getting deep into the conversation to build a relationships. And I was always wondering why, and I was wondering how I can do something to help people meet the right person, or even give them a little bit of topic to start with. And that was the original idea. And then I start observing people, the events around me, and I kind of see a trend that the good events have, which is they usually have an event host or facilitator who actively guide people through what to do. For example, I know that for Startup Grind events, you guys, the volunteers, would actively introduce people to each other. And I see that that kind of facilitation is the key to giving people a good experience. So that's where the first idea came from. And we were thinking about how we can build that learning into a technology to empower people. Yeah.
Fabulous. So, I mean, this was originally a offline event, so it would be in a four-wall structure in a physical space, right? Yeah. And I guess, were you affected by canceled events like most people when it came to, you know, the recent occurrences, be it both the protests and be it for the COVID? Were you directly affected or just on the side affected?
Super affected. Super directly affected. So I guess I can share a little bit more about what Toasty is, so people has an idea of why is it so affected. So essentially, Toasty is a real-time technology where if you have a group of people in the room at an offline event, you can just put up the QR code, and everyone, like 80 people in the room, can all scan to join on their mobile phone. And instantly, we use icebreaker questions to break them into groups. And then they would meet up in person, and then they would be facilitated to interact with each other on their Toasty kind of web page on their phone. So the reason why it's directly affected is because it has to be an offline events or workshops or meetups. And I have a story to tell, which is back in, I think, I forgot when we started to have the virus around, maybe December.
Yeah, it was Chinese New Year.
Okay, so
well, in Hong Kong
it started to get serious in Hong Kong. So I still remember back then, one of my colleagues asked me on a Friday, all hands, and she was like, Kevon, the virus is getting more serious. Are we going to do anything about it? What's our plan in Toasty? And I remember telling her that let's just stay put because it would be such a hassle to change our whole direction based on something that we're not sure yet. Maybe the virus will go away, something like that. But most importantly, most of our users are in US and Europe. So back then it was mostly China and Hong Kong and a few Asian places. So I told her, let's just stay put. The funny thing is, just over the next 4 days, things start to go south. Like the virus got to Europe, the virus got to US, and suddenly the whole world is affected. So I was brainstorming in that few days, like, are we gonna stay put now or should we make a move? And finally, after 4 or 5 days, I went back to the team and I told them, sorry, I know that I said stay put last week, but we really have to make a move now because otherwise we'll be sitting here for like months with no usage of our technology. So that's when we made the decision of, okay, people are moving online. We have an engagement product. How can we bring it online to support our users and other people?
Excellent. I really like that you're being very proactive and you're on the pulse to lead the team, because you know I guess everybody wants to be right, and it's good that you are open to seeing and evaluating and reevaluating and iterating. Very much agile. I would say that it would be, what would you say would be different about your product on is the offline design?
Yeah.
And what was it that you had to do? What were the challenges when you actually had to then make that decision to change to becoming more an online environment? What was it that you had to do? Did you have to then brainstorm first? Or was it your ideas and adapting that?
What do we have to do? So definitely I set the direction of, okay, guys, let's move virtual. And usually our team, because my team, we have 8 people full-time. Most of us are in product and engineering, 6 of us in there. And then on the business side, it's just me and 1 marketing person. So we are very product heavy because we believe in building a great product. So I usually just set the direction and then my team would figure out, okay, what do we need and how do we get there? And then we're a small team, so we can move fast. The biggest difference is the video and audio part. I think now we all know why Zoom is so amazing, because it's so stable, it's so robust, and it's not very easy to add that element to any technology. You have to care about the volume, the bandwidth, and all that. But in terms of the actual the Toasty product itself, is actually not that bad, because remember how I told you at offline events, I want people to be more guided. I like them to be told what to do, because people like to be guided. And when we move things online to the virtual space, I realize they need to be even more guided. So the facilitation part becomes even more important. So yeah, in terms of the engagement side of the product, we don't have to make a lot of move, but then yeah, just adding the video and audio would be a challenge. But also, this is actually related to the topic of today, which is like, how do you run an engaging virtual session? A lot of people think they can just copy the event format and then bring it online and do it the same way. That's the first mistake anyone can make. So it's kind of same as a product. We cannot just take Toasty, which is good for the user experience offline, and just add a video and audio and think that it will work online. No, the way people behave, the way people use your product is different. So figuring that out is actually really challenging as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just got thank you for the comment from one of the people who done the chat. Thank you very much, Nicole. we will be actually sharing on the specific topic on the webinar on the engagement and the effective virtual sharing. The demo part will come in the after party. The reason is that we wanted to theorize some of the pain points of a startup, and what we will do then is explain a little bit more. I'm sorry that it's just going to be wrapped up in a short while, Nicole, but we will do the after party where you will get a chance to really engage with the product and be able to understand what Kevon's virtual networking is doing. In terms of, so thank you for that. Just bear with us for about another 5 to 7 minutes, Nicole. I think we're done.
I think Nicole means like maybe I can share a few more tips on how to run an engaging online event.
Yeah. If you, that was going to be my next question. If we could do that, and then what we will do is do the physical thing. But when it comes to tips of, networking already in its physical form is actually already a challenge for facilitators in a physical space where you're trying to get people to be more gregarious if they're not already. And virtual would be even more. So even in this platform where we actually don't have the physical interactivity other than a gallery view, how would you be able to be more engaging in a virtual space compared to a offline space?
Yeah. So I think first we have to understand why is it so hard for people to engage on a virtual space. And I'm sure there are so many theories, but my theory is that when we're in a room, like a meeting room or event space or like any type of room, we're quite used to that environment. Like for example, when we grew up, we went to school, we're in a classroom. So we know that in a classroom, we should be learning. We should be listening to the teacher. In a business meeting, we know that a meeting room means that we need to discuss, collaborate, and deliver some results. But when it comes to the virtual space, like I'm at home right now in a room. I don't know where you are, Emrit.
I'm in the office, actually.
You're in the office. Okay. So like we're confused about the setting that we're in, because this room used to be, let's say my bedroom, or this is my living room. I eat here, I play video games here. And suddenly everyone has to go online and we're confused what this is for. So I think that's the main reason why it's so hard to get people to engage. And my own view of getting people to engage is that like a fireside chat like this, I think it's a great start. But the engagement really comes in when every participant, like Nicole, Lars, Clark, they can take part in the experience. I'm sure all of you have experienced, like when you go to an event, or a workshop, if you are able to kind of share your views or stand up and talk to people about you walk away feeling really good. But if you're just there, listen and go, you don't feel great. So I think everyone who's planning on virtual event, you should think about how you can get everyone involved in that virtual session. Even though it's 200, 300, doesn't matter. Just find a way to get them involved. And that's actually the way we design Toasty, is to break people into groups so that everyone has a chance to talk to each other and interact with each other instead of just listen and go. Yeah.
Do you find though that with Toasty that this is actually, have you got good feedback? How long has Toasty been on in the virtual setting?
Oh, so as I mentioned, the virus hasn't hit US and Europe, right? So the critical decision of moving virtual is only like 3 to 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And then we successfully launched last Friday. So
fabulous.
Everyone can just go up to toasty.ai and then sign up an account and use it. So it's a very short period of time to make such a big change.
So you would have done some events already prior to Startup Grind's event in this setting?
Personally, we don't run a lot of events ourselves. Mm-hmm. We pretty much provide this platform so that people can just, if you have like a team meeting, like a team catch up, if you have a workshop, you can just use it. So most of the time, we don't really know how people use it. For ourselves, we did a few demos with our kind of VIPs and internal and something like that.
So is there a limit to the number of people that can be in the room, in the Toasty room?
For
in the Toasty
us,
webinar?
So yeah, it's actually related to the topic of today as well. I believe in keeping it small. Okay. You can have hundreds of people on your webinar, but if you really want that level of engagement, then you really have to keep it small, break it into groups, and then help them to interact with each other. So for Toasty, right now, each session is up to 50 people. We're not designed for conference. We're not designed for trade shows. We're designed for intimate kind of groups.
So that would be one of your main differences in your sort of software compared to the other sort of team, like Google Meets or Zoom and Skype.
So that's another tip I have for people who are running virtual events is you cannot just copy your offline format online. Not just you cannot copy it, but you actually have to redesign it. So usually if you have a speaker for 30 minutes, it's best to shorten it to 15 minutes and then have like a 5-minute Q&A and then another speaker for 10 minutes. So make everything super short and also add some pressure. I don't want to make it feel, I don't want to make it sound bad, but with the right kind of facilitation, virtual event, you really need to add a bit of pressure, like a timer or like some peer pressure to get people to talk. Because otherwise people can just sit back, turn off my camera, turn off my mic, and I don't even need to participate. So find a way so that everyone needs to participate. And that's the same as like you force everyone to turn on their camera. Otherwise, you kick them out. I think I'm going to recommend a book because I love reading. So I learned this from the book called The Art of Gathering. So it talks about how if you're running an event or even a birthday gathering at home, as a host, you should be actively hosting. When people are talking too much, shut them off. If people don't know what to do, guide them. So that's really the key to hosting things online as well. I think this book will really help you guys if you're running virtual events.
Fabulous. Just curious, Toasty came about, the name Toasty is actually a cute short name, but was it just coming about from the actual physical activity of toasting each other when you say hi?
So to be very honest, when we first created the name, we didn't know what it's for. There are two ways of naming startups, right? One is the Eventbrite way. You have the word event in it. One is like Uber and Google. It means nothing. And we love the way that it means nothing. And then we were just brainstorming pancake, French toast. And then somehow my colleague Jack said, what about Toasty? And everyone loves it. And so we decided to go with it. But later on, we realized that it's super related to what we do because we're turning relationships from cold to toasty.
Oh, nice. Lovely. Okay, so I'm all excited, and I'm sure that everybody is going to be really excited to use your software. So into the real application, we need to have the audience know a few top tips. So please, Kevin, just share a little bit about the prep before we get into the after party.
So everyone here, we have a lot of people today. So we're going to move the after party to Toasty to kind of give everyone a voice. That's what Toasty is about. So here, I just want to make sure everyone is aware of what kind of experience that you're about to get into so that no one is confused. So we'll be sharing a link to Toasty shortly. We'll have 2 rooms. But once you get into the main room, your mic and your video will be turned off. And let's keep it that way, because with a main room of like 40, 50 people, it's going to be crowded. But what we're going to do is I'll be a moderator for one room, and Amrit will be a moderator for another room. We're going to kick off icebreaker questions, and we're going to form you into groups of 4. And what's going to happen is we're going to get you into different rooms, just among the 4 of you, and we'll be kicking off the Toasty activities that is supposed to guide you through how to get to know each other, make it fun, and learn about each other. So the activities will be very quick. So I want you to pay attention to your screen. And what is going to happen is that we also save a little bit of time for you to do some free flow networking, about 8 minutes after the activities. And the 4 of you should chat for 8 minutes. And there's a big Toasty button on the bottom right of your screen. So within the last 3 minutes of the round, we'll kind of come back to this page. And if you feel like you want to keep in touch with your group, whoever wants to keep in touch can click and hold the button for 3 seconds, and you'll be exchanging an email. And that's why when you enter on Toasty, we ask you for your email. So make sure you enter your real email if you really want to exchange that later on. If you don't want to, just don't click the button and you're safe. No one gets your email. So that's a short intro of Toasty. And here we have the 2 rooms. If your first name is A to M, please go to the first link. If your first name starts with N to, I don't know what that symbol is. Basically, yeah, anything, then go to the second link. Yan is going to post the link on the chat right now, so you can just kind of click on it. And one thing I need to remind you is that it only works on a desktop, laptop, and we super recommend Chrome. Chrome has the best experience, and other browser we cannot guarantee. All right, so I think that's all from me.
Yeah, and Jens, I will stay on here in the Zoom meeting. So if anybody has any problem, I'll be back here. You can actually rejoin this Zoom meeting with the link that you got into this meeting. So therefore, everybody who is A to M in the first name, click on the first link, toasty.fun/495536. And everybody who has a first name between N and Ö, because we have a lot of people from Sweden here as well, toasty.fun436445. So you will...
Sorry to interrupt you, it's just that also when you're logging out of Zoom,
close Zoom.
When you can actually, you have to close Zoom in order to be able to have your
microphone,
your camera and your mic work on Toasty.
Because otherwise Zoom will hog that for you. So hopefully what's going to happen now is that a lot of people are going to disappear from this one, and yeah, just click the link, go over there, and you will meet up with Kevon and Amrit in your 2 rooms, and they will run the whole networking session. I can see that it's counting down now in number of attendees. Perfect. That means people leaving.
So see you on the other side.
One thing I want to remind everyone is that we don't have a chat function on Toasty yet. So once you get in, we actually cannot chat with each other. But we'll be guiding you through the experience. And make sure, you turn off Zoom.
Turn off Zoom. Okay. So I'll be back here. See you guys next month for next Telegram meeting. Bye.
Thank you so much.
See you on the other side.